Night clung to the valley like a warning. The city of Jericho slept behind walls so thick even the moonlight couldn't pass through. Torches flickered on the ramparts. Guards yawned, confident that nothing could touch them. Outside those towering gates, an entire nation waited in silence. No swords raised, no war cries, just the soft rhythm of footsteps in the dust. Their leader, Joshua, stood still, eyes closed, heart pounding. The command still echoed in his spirit. You will not fight, you will walk. To the soldiers beside him, it sounded like madness. But Joshua knew obedience was the weapon. And somewhere in the dark, heaven leaned closer, waiting for the sound that would shake the earth. Because this was no ordinary battle. This was the day the walls would listen. Before you watch this story, pause for a moment. What if the very wall standing between you and your breakthrough isn't meant to be fought, but worshipped down? Stay to the end, because what happens here will show you the unseen power that moves when faith walks in silence and obedience sings. The desert wind howled across the plains of Canaan, carrying with it the dust of 40 years. Joshua stood on a ridge overlooking Jericho, a city that glimmered like bronze under the sun, its walls thick, tall, and mocking. The Israelites behind him had crossed the Jordan. The manna had stopped. The wilderness was over. But before them stood one last barrier, the gate between promise and possession. And it was shut tight. Jericho was no ordinary city. Its walls were massive, built to outlast sieges, sealed from the ground up. Soldiers walked its ramparts with torches, their armor glinting like fireflies in the dusk. Joshua's eyes narrowed. He was a warrior. He had seen cities fall, men flee, nations crumble. But this was different. It wasn't just stone he was staring at. It was resistance made flesh, a wall that dared to stand against God's promise. Night came. The camp below fell silent, torches flickering like stars on earth. But Joshua stayed awake, walking alone toward the looming city. He didn't know he was about to step into a meeting that would shift the course of eternity. A flash of light, sudden, blinding, stopped him cold. Before him stood a man unlike any other, sword drawn, eyes burning like molten gold. His voice rolled like thunder and peace all at once. Joshua fell face down. "Are you for us or for our enemies?" The figure replied, calm and eternal. "Neither. I am the commander of the Lord's army." The air trembled. The ground seemed to hum beneath Joshua's knees. He realized this was no mere man. This was heaven's general, the Word before the Word made flesh. "Remove your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy." Joshua obeyed, trembling, barefoot before glory. Then the command came, not of swords or spears, but of silence and sound. "You shall march around the city once a day for 6 days. 7 priests shall carry 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day, march 7 times, and when the priests blow the final blast, the people shall shout." Joshua lifted his head, stunned. No battle plan, no siege engines, only obedience, only praise. But Joshua knew the voice of God when he heard it, even when it made no sense. At dawn, the first march began. The Ark of the Covenant, a golden box of impossible power, was lifted high by the priests. Its cherubim glowed faintly in the early light. Behind it came the trumpets. Behind them, thousands of men, women, and children, their faces tight with wonder and fear. Jericho's guards leaned over the wall, laughing. What are they doing? Circling like vultures. Some threw stones, others shouted curses. But not a word rose from Israel's lips. Only the sound of sandals scraping dust and the haunting cry of ram's horns echoing through the valley. The people marched once around the city, then silently they returned to camp. No victory, no collapse, no fire from heaven, just obedience. Strange, quiet, unwavering obedience. Day after day it continued. The same path, the same silence, the same trumpet call that faded into the desert wind. Some grew restless. What are we doing, Joshua? Shouldn't we fight? Joshua only looked toward Jericho and said, "Faith fights in ways the flesh cannot see." By the 5th day, the soldiers on the wall had stopped laughing. The mocking grew quieter. The fear began to spread.
Something unseen was shifting. It wasn't in the city. It was in the air. It was in the sound, the rhythm of footsteps and horns aligning with heaven's heartbeat. By the 6th day, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Every stone in Jericho's wall felt the vibration of something coming, something ancient, something divine. When the 7th sunrise came, the world seemed brighter, too bright. Joshua awoke before the others, eyes fixed on the ark, whispering, "Today, Lord, let your word be proven true." The priests stood ready. 7 horns gleamed in the morning light. The ark was lifted high. The people fell into perfect silence. Then Joshua raised his hand, a signal that heaven had been waiting for since the beginning. The priests stepped forward. Their lips touched the horns. A long, trembling note rose through the valley. Ancient, raw, alive. The sound reached heaven. The earth quaked. But before the shout, before the walls fell, there was a heartbeat of stillness, where heaven leaned down to listen to human faith. And in that breathless moment, between sound and silence, between obedience and glory, Joshua's whisper carried through the dust. "Now, shout." The air trembled. The sound of the ram's horn still lingered through every grain of dust. Then came the pause, that heartbeat of silence between heaven and earth. And Joshua's command ripped through it like lightning. "Now, shout!" The people lifted their voices, not in fear, not in frenzy, but in faith. A sound rose that no wall could endure. It wasn't the cry of a crowd. It was the roar of creation itself responding to the breath of obedience. Every trumpet blared, every throat cried out, and beneath the sound, the ground moved. The mighty walls of Jericho, which men said could never fall, began to tremble. Dust poured from their seams, stones cracked like thunder under invisible hands. Jericho's soldiers screamed from the ramparts, dropping their spears, their arrogance shattered. The earth groaned not in destruction, but in release. Then, all at once, the walls collapsed. Not from explosion, not from force. They sank, as though the hand of God pressed gently downward, returning human pride to the dust from which it came. When the dust cleared, the impossible lay before them, a city without a wall, a promise without a barrier. The people stood still for a breathless moment, unable to move, their cries swallowed by awe. Joshua lifted his eyes to the sky. No weapon had been raised, yet victory roared in every heartbeat. No blood had been spilled, yet heaven had fought. The secret power of obedient praise did what no sword could. He whispered, "It is the Lord." And the people surged forward, entering Jericho not as conquerors, but as witnesses of what happens when heaven's rhythm meets human obedience. But while victory burned through the camp, Joshua's spirit was sobered. He knew what others did not, that Jericho's fall was not just the end of a city, but the beginning of a test. Because obedience that brings power must also carry reverence. The command had been clear. Touch nothing devoted to destruction. Take nothing for yourselves. All that is in the city belongs to the Lord. As the people celebrated, Joshua's gaze fell on one man, Achan, standing too long among the spoils, eyes darting, hand lingering where it shouldn't. Joshua's heart tightened. Every victory, carries its shadow. But for that moment, the air was thick with glory. The ark stood at the center of the ruins, its golden wings glinting with sunlight through the dust. The priests wept openly. Children knelt, touching the ground that had once been forbidden. Women lifted their hands toward heaven, tears streaming down their faces. And Joshua, the man who had once been Moses' shadow, stood as the new dawn of Israel's faith. He had learned that God doesn't always roar in war. Sometimes he whispers through worship. That night the campfire flickered low. The people were asleep, but Joshua could not rest. He stood outside his tent, staring at the ruins glowing faintly under the moonlight. The silence of Jericho was strange, not the silence of defeat, but the stillness that follows divine completion. He felt a presence again, familiar, weighty, near. The same voice that had spoken before Jericho spoke again in the wind. Joshua, this was not a victory of strength, but of surrender. Teach them that obedience is the highest form of worship. Walls fall not because of sound, but because hearts bow. Joshua bowed his head, tears hot against his face. Yes, Lord. The voice faded, but its echo remained not in the air, but in his spirit. By morning, Jericho's rubble gleamed like gold in the sunrise. Children played where soldiers once stood. The priests sang softly, psalms rising from the ruins like incense. And Joshua raised a monument of uncut stones, not to mark a war, but to remember a wonder. He inscribed words upon it, words that still whisper through time. When praise obeys, walls fall. And from that day on, Jericho became more than a story. It became a prophecy, a mystery woven into every heart that would ever stand before its own wall. Because Jericho is not just a place, it's a pattern, a reminder that some battles are not won by force, but by faith. Centuries later, a rabbi from Nazareth would walk the same road where Joshua once stood. He too would face walls, walls of religion, pride, and death itself. And he too would conquer, not by sword, but by obedience. For every Jericho that falls on earth echoes the greater fall of sin itself, when Christ, through perfect obedience, brought down the greatest wall between God and man. If this story moved your spirit, remember, your praise is not just sound, it's a weapon. Your obedience is not weakness, it's divine alignment. The same God who brought down Jericho still moves when his people walk in faith. Like, share, and subscribe to Living Word for more cinematic stories of divine power, faith, and the mysteries that still speak through Scripture.